massive barrage of rockets coming in here, not too far from us. So we have had to take shelter here by the roadside. We're just about 5 minutes away. Gaza is in that direction. We can hear now a lot of jets in the sky. We could also hear the Iron Dome intercepting a number of those rockets as they were whizzing overhead and making impact in that direction, not too far from here. We came to this location because this was ground zero for this entire operation of carnage. Hamas militants came on a pickup truck. This was the first place where they breached that border wall, and they basically drove down this strip, just spraying lead wherever they went. We saw, in fact, I was just grabbing it before that happened and we had to hit the deck, but heavy weaponry being used. It's saying we can get up now. Where are we moving to? Sorry, just 1 second. Okay. All right, so now I can show you the scene here. This is where those militants first came, opening up fire on all these vehicles. There's a baby carriage down there, turned over on its side. You can see over there, Clayton, if you just show in the distance there, some kind of strikes, looks like in Gaza as well. Return fire. Or is that the smoke from the rocket launches? Forgive me. It's a little difficult after being crouched in a ditch to know exactly what's been going on. But yes, multiple casualties along this area. You can probably see the scale of the damage that was done to these vehicles. A lot of them just blew up with the force of the ammunition they were taking. And they're just now towing away the actual pickup truck that was carrying those Hamas fighters. And met with some resistance. But careful, Clayton. There were a couple of bullet holes in the windshield rather. So they stopped the car, they got out of it, and they just went on this shooting spree. This is also, they believe, where a lot of hostages were taken. They just got out of this, started grabbing people, started shooting people, and taking them back to that side of the border. John?
So, Clarissa, I'll give you a chance to catch your breath right here. You are headed closer to the Israel-Gaza border. You heard some rockets being fired from inside Gaza, maybe some of them, many of them, hopefully all of them, being intercepted. What is around you in terms of civilian life? Are the Israelis back in their homes?
Not here, they're not. This was, the city of Sderot is just over there, which was a pretty buzzing city, but almost everybody has left at this stage, or they are spending most of their days in a shelter. And this has really become a kind of an area where the only vehicles in light you see are ones like this. Israeli military, Israeli personnel, Israeli army being moved and deployed all up and down along this border, fueling speculation that some kind of a ground offensive could be imminent, although obviously that is complicated by the fact that there are a lot of hostages. I'm just moving us out of the roadway here. Oh, another one. You can see where they shot up this car here. Just completely destroyed. We don't know. We asked how many lives were lost here. It's very difficult to get a sense who might be alive, who was taken as a hostage. But you can imagine the visceral terror as this scene was unfolding, John.
Clarissa, this is Sarah. Let me ask you about, you have not only been there where you're seeing rocket fire still coming in, but you actually went to the site where there was this festival and that awful video of people running for their lives and being slaughtered by Hamas militants. Can you give us some sense of what you saw there?
So we visited there yesterday, Sarah. I'm just going to step out of the way. There's an ambulance coming this way. We visited there yesterday, and again, just carnage. You can still see the dead bodies of those Hamas militants all over the approach to that kibbutz where thousands of young revelers had gathered to celebrate the end of the high holidays. They were dancing through the night until at about 6 in the morning when the militants started firing a barrage of rockets overhead. Then they actually infiltrated the dance party. Sorry, I'm just going to move us over here again. We're trying to keep out of the way of these guys and let them do their job. I also wonder if someone in the control room can turn around that video that just showed the initial moments we were taking shelter there when that barrage of rockets came in. But the scene at Refuge, that kibbutz that you're talking about, was just nothing short of horrifying. And the fear that so many families still have, they don't know, Sarah, if their loved ones are even alive. An Israeli volunteer group that identifies human remains said at least 260 bodies were found, but there were thousands of people there. And there are still families desperately looking, desperately hoping, and not knowing where their loved ones are.
What you're showing in stark relief right now, Clarissa, this is Kate, is that this isn't a terrorist attack from just this weekend. This is ongoing. Take us back to, I mean, when we came to you, you had hit the deck with your crew. What is happening? What was happening around you? And what does it tell about this ongoing situation?
Yeah, so just as we started this live shot, the red alert went out, which means incoming is imminent. We tried to run to the shelter. We didn't quite make it because we could already hear the rockets whizzing overhead. So we had to sort of jump into a ditch over there and wait until the barrage passed. We could hear the Iron Dome being activated overhead. But it really just gives you a sense that even with the most sophisticated military technology, the Israelis are still up against a really tough fight. And the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has acknowledged that himself. He has told the Israeli people, you got to prepare yourselves for a long fight, for a tough fight. At the moment, the focus is obviously on trying to ensure that any Hamas militants who are able to infiltrate that border have successfully been pushed out, and to repair the breaches to the border, dozens and dozens of breaches all along that border, and of course then to try to win back the release of these dozens of hostages. Hamas saying more than 100 hostages. The Israeli military here on the ground telling us they don't know if these guys are alive. They don't know what the situation is with regards to their whereabouts, to their health. And so it's a very, very delicate calibration that the Israelis have to engage on, trying to thread the needle between issuing a fearsome response to this unprecedented act of aggression, while at the same time trying to protect the lives of those who may be held hostage in the Gaza Strip.
Clarissa, thank you so much. We'll get back to you. All right, that was a special word from earlier, well, just about 1 hour ago was when we last connected with her. Yeah.
All right, we're getting some new video, Justin. I do want to warn you, it is graphic video of what officials in Gaza say was an Israeli airstrike on a refugee camp there. Again, be warned, this is graphic.
That from a refugee camp is what we hear from reports. We also have new video in of the massacre by Hamas on a music festival in Israel on Saturday. That celebration interrupted by a warning on the festival speakers that everyone was told to leave immediately, and then the sound of rockets.
CNN's Nick Robertson is in Israel. We've been watching you all morning as there have been people coming to that area where all of those cars have been shot up, pulled over to the side, trying to find anything that they can salvage to help people understand where their loved ones are. Can you give us a sense of what is happening now there?
Yeah, it's eerie. There are moments of silence where you're standing around by these cars where you know that there was so much carnage perpetrated, where there was so much fear. These were people who just come, young people, come to party. I mean, look, the shoes that are strewn here. These are party shoes. People were running away. The people who are here taking the documents, they've moved on. This is really an active military area right now. There's a lot of military coming and going, a lot of military vehicles, a lot of military deploying along here. But this is just left the way that it was Saturday night as people were trying to flee Hamas, and you just get that sense of the desperation getting in the cars. But there are bullet holes. They're sprayed with bullet holes here, windows shot out, party chairs, bottles of water in the back here. People had come, young people, innocent young people, teenagers, people in their 20s, had come here to enjoy themselves, to relax after the holidays. They heard that warning and they ran away, and they came here to try to get in their cars, and they were gunned down. The cars scattered here in the fields, doors open as people were trying to jump in and get away at the last minute. Strewn across the road, belongings up here in the road. There's blood in the road here. But what I want to show you here, and Sarah, you mentioned this before about the shelters, the bomb shelters, these brightly painted concrete bunkers here for people to go hide in when there's danger close, when the rockets are coming. Okay, let's just pause. John, will you pan over there to Gaza? We're looking at Gaza, a large plume of smoke rising up from Gaza, because of course we're hearing the fighter jets overhead. We know that they're impacting inside Gaza. You've just been showing images of injured people from a refugee camp there. That looks like a very recent impact. I'm still hearing the jets. Just off to the right, another impact over there. The smoke's been rising from that one for quite a while. That other one we're looking at is very new. I'll talk about this bunker. So everyone's raced here. As many as could get away raced here to get in their cars, and some of them did what they would naturally do, what they're trained to do. If there's danger close, you go and get in one of these brightly painted shelters here. This is Jewish National Fund USA. They're brightly painted. People understand that this is where to go to get safe. But outside of here, smashed water bottles, broken shoes. And as I step inside here, you're overcome by the smell. And what is clear that happened here, people came in here to get shelter. There's gunshots and impacts all over the wall. I don't think we'll go in too far, John, if we just step out and let me describe what we're seeing, because it is a very horrific testimony to the absolute carnage, rampage, and utter brutality of Hamas. That people were hiding in there, and it's absolutely clear from the blood on the walls, the bullet holes in the walls, that they just went in there and shot these innocent people cowering and hiding away from them inside this concrete place of safety, this shelter. Hamas just chased them in and brutally gunned them down, and there can be no stronger testimony, I think, to the horrific events of that morning and the horrific nature of what Hamas was doing, and the deep scar that it's left on everyone in this country, and to that point the military build-up that's underway to help ease some of that pain.
Nick Robertson, that was absolutely striking, showing us what happened inside of that shelter, because as anyone who has been to Israel knows, that is where you go for safety, but that is for rocket attacks. That is for attacks.
Hamas chased the people into a shelter where they would take refuge from rocket attacks, only to gun them down as innocent ducks in a row and massacre innocent partygoers at a music festival in Israel. Hamas. Hamas, you shall live in infamy. Hamas, you now represent infamy. Hamas, the world will see you as despicable. Hamas, the word, will represent hatred and violence. You will be put down. You will not be around anymore at all. You're going to be taken to the wall. You're going to be obliterated. Hamas, Hamas, obliterated.
IDF strikes on military targets as they describe them in Gaza. Continuous, intensive strikes on Gaza now. So we are also seeing outcoming fire from Hamas still today. We had sirens go off in Tel Aviv. Here we had to take shelter in the hotel that we are in as incoming mortars claimed by Hamas were targeted at the airport of Ben Gurion here. What we are also seeing, I see Gaza down about 40, 50 miles down to my left here, to my right here in Tel Aviv, up the coastline, I can see the road going to Lebanon, and we do, as we understand it, know that the IDF has been targeting armed militants who they say have crossed into, breached the border there, crossed into Israel, and they have taken out, been striking those militants and indeed targets inside Lebanon. We'll get more on that for you as we get it into CNN. For more now, I'm joined by former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak.
Any building inhabited by Hamas, knock it down,
the military
destroy
intelligence
it.
chief and the defense minister. Your files are numerous. You are well imbued in the politics, in the policy, in the strategy of Israel. What do you make of what we are seeing at present, sir?
You know, yesterday we suffered a major blow, very extremely painful, probably the most kind of highest death toll in any day of our fighting history. The numbers might amount to 800 or whatever.
700 officially at the moment. We'll say it could go 900.
It might reach
Great
more. But basically, so we are at war, and we are a defiant people, and we will fight, and we will win. It's still very sensitive situation. Hamas had to suffer a major blow that he had not experienced. It's accompanied by the risk of getting into deterioration on the north. I'm 80 miles to the north from here, but we are ready. Israel mobilized several hundreds, thousands of reservists and deployed. What happened there, which is a major failure of in Gaza, major failure of our early warning system, our operational, and even of the authorities at the political level, let's describe it this way, is severe, but we'll have a time in the future to correct it. We'll now unite it for the fighting, and we will not repeat the mistakes that have been done there.
In the short term, I want to talk about what this war will look like and what sort of price could be exacted. So your sense of whether we are on the verge of a ground incursion as the defense minister announces that there is now a total siege of Gaza, electricity cut off, food cut off, fuel cut off.
Yeah, cutoff is not yet an incursion, but it's very probable there will be an incursion. It could be done militarily. We can take over the Gaza Strip, the most of the Gaza Strip within a few days, and all of it within probably 2 or 3 weeks. That's not the problem. The problem is how to relate to the fact that we have hostages there, and how to deal with what will end up having at hand.
And a Palestinian population who are also
we have to think about it in advance, and we do not have any interest in having a deterioration to a full-scale clash with the Hezbollah. But if it will happen upon their choice or deteriorating without control, we will win there as well. So it will be longer and more painful, but you know, I have to put it in proportion. Israel, under any case, is not under any kind of existential threat. We are stronger, we will win, we suffer the blow, we learn, draw the lessons, the immediate lessons immediately, and the more profound ones a long time.
You are well aware that your enemies, the enemies of Israel, will say this may not be, a nation that's facing an existential threat, but it looks vulnerable at the moment. Let's be quite clear. It looks vulnerable at the moment. Can I just ask you a couple of things that you just brought up there? Let's start with the hostages, because this is really important. More than, as we understand it, 100 hostages, according to Hamas. The IDF has not released numbers, but it's significant. There are significant Israeli hostages now being held, and that, as we've been reporting now for hours, very much complicates what happens next so far as the IDF's tactics are concerned.
But
you know this better than anybody else.
I know it very well, but I'm not going to discuss the details and the subtleties of it in front of a camera. This is only, even in the Gaza Strip, they follow CNN very...
Suffice to say, it's very complicated.
It's very complicated, but we have good people at the top that might be capable of considering it both responsibly and still determinedly. We have to give a major blow to the Hamas, and a way will be found to do that.
You talked about Hezbollah, the Iran-backed group in southern Lebanon on the northern border of Israel. Here you say Israel doesn't want to fight with them, but if there is a fight to be waged, Israel will win. I've heard the Lebanese Prime Minister saying he doesn't want to fight with Israel. Of course, Hezbollah, a group which is not controlled by the Prime Minister, but he is being warned by many people around this region that he needs a line of communication with Hezbollah that says don't get involved. We have already seen some involvement. Are you concerned about how much involvement today, or do you see it as small enough to suggest that they're not wanting to get involved?
What happened today is not enough to drag us into major clash. It's genuine. The normal authorities in Lebanon do not want it, and the Hezbollah might consider it under certain situation. We cannot penetrate all the calculations, but we have to be ready. So what happened in Gaza cannot repeat over there, because in every settlement in the north there are now soldiers and heavy forces are there ready to protect the country and to come into clash if it's necessary.
What does this mean for Bibi Netanyahu, for Benjamin Netanyahu going forward? You've been in that chair. What's the impact on this Prime Minister at this point?
Well, it's a very, very tough moment for him as well, but he's an experienced Prime Minister. We are amidst a major debate with him about other initiatives of him, which we feel a certain relationship to these events we are facing now. Basically, I fully back the protest movement, which think that all the judicial reform, so to speak, was accurately described by our Chief Justice Esther Hayut. She said this is not a judicial reform. This is a blatant attempt to crash the independence of the Supreme Court, push Israel out of the family of democracy.
And that's a file that we should consider in context here. I'm asking specifically about Benjamin Netanyahu at the moment, and I want to press you on this, because the opposition leaders have said that they would be prepared to go into a unity government at this point. Even the most right-wing government members have said an emergency unity government is important at this point. Is it?
Look,
do you expect to see that?
Under normal situation, it was the most expected step to establish a unity government. In moments of war, the Israeli public is united. Nowadays, with those, there are certain extremists in the government which are
Finance
damaging.
Minister, the National Security Minister.
Yeah, the two guys, I say it's like the think of the American, these two guys for the Proud Boys who was sent to 20 or 15 years in jail, making one of them Secretary of Treasury, the other Secretary of Homeland Security. They're totally irresponsible people. I think that the opposition would make a quite clear demand that they will not participate or run in this war. They have some messianic crazy ideas
You
about
see, Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid likely will have said, we'll get into a unity government. That's important for the Israeli public, but we do not want to see those two characters involved.
I think it probably will happen. I think that basically they don't trust Netanyahu after all these last 3 years. No one trusts him really. And I don't think that in front of the CNN I have to discuss all these subjects.
Let me just go to these live pictures. This is Gaza, 5:30 p.m. in the afternoon, and these are continuous multiple attacks by the Israel's defense forces, pounding this small, congested Gaza Strip at this point. As you sit here with me, Ehud, and you consider what we are seeing in front of you, what's going through your mind?
No, it's necessary. Probably a stronger attacks are necessary, but the real difference is there's a murderous terror organization, the Hamas. They are deliberately coming to kill women and civilians, elderly people, babies, whatever. Here, there are some collateral damage, but I'm sure that every neighborhood which is attacked got an early warning several hours ago to go out, and whoever is operating near a headquarters or any installation of Hamas should leave his place, because it's under the risk of getting out of the blue sky.
The question is, where do they go? I mean, for Palestinian civilians, and of course we have to remember there are Israeli hostages in places around Gaza. That is what Hamas has said. These hostages have been placed, according to the military group, around Gaza. So very, very difficult for the Israeli forces to know where they may be. And of course, Palestinian civilians. There will be questions asked about whether this is commensurate with the sort of attacks that we've seen from Hamas. Is this a commensurate response? And the response from many here will be, we've seen a massacre on the Israeli side of the border.
We do not pretend to do the same. We suffered, we are painful, we swallow it. We operate under the norms of a advanced state. Every attack is going through certain kind of examination to what extent whether there was an early warning and there is a real target there. But there are a lot of targets. There is very heavy infrastructure. In fact, the Israeli government, in a way, in the last 5 years or more than 5 years, has a policy of preferring, especially the right-wing government, of preferring the Hamas. Their explicit aim is to strengthen the Hamas in order to weaken the PA, rather to do the opposite, to strengthen the PA and weaken the Hamas. And a lot of money was transferred to them. So we bear some of the responsibility for this kind of growing of Hamas.
Surely there is, an argument that says that what we are seeing now, and many people say, is an inflection point. Can we really go back to the sort of status quo? We go through these conflicts, and then there's a ceasefire, and then we lurch back to the same sort of status quo. The Israelis doing some business with Hamas. And
Becky, I'm not sure we can go to the original status quo. There will be certain changes. That's life. It's never, the future and the past do not repeat itself. But it rhymes. It resonates.
It's good to have you. Thank you very much indeed for your perspective. Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister, former intelligence chief, former IDF leader, former defense minister, here with perspective on what we are seeing as we look at pictures coming in, John, from Gaza, 5:34 in the afternoon. Intense bombardment by Israel's defense forces as they continue to strike those targets.
You see the smoke rising up over Gaza. The former Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, who had truly probably thought he had seen everything until what he saw over the last 3 days in Israel. Israel Defense Forces say their helicopters are currently striking inside Lebanon. We are getting new reporting on that as Israel announces a complete siege of Gaza. Tanks headed to the border. Our special coverage continues right after this.
Airwick's limited edition fragrances are infused with natural essential oils for authentic seasonal scents that fill your home with warmth and cheer.
If your thyroid eye disease was diagnosed a long, long time ago, you may think your eyes will be bulging forever, like a never-ending curse that can't be broken. But even if you've been told it's too late, treating your thyroid eye disease may still be possible, and a new day is within sight. Learn how you could give your eyes a fresh start at stilltreatted.com.
I don't expect to look 38 at 58, but I do want to feel great, and I want to look great.
CeraVital is an award-winning beauty supplement at Ulta. Get started today at CeraVital.com.
My active psoriatic arthritis can make me feel like I'm losing my rhythm. With Sky Rizzy to treat my skin and joints, I'm getting into my groove. Along with significantly clearer skin, Sky Rizzy helps me move with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. And is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses. Sky Rizzy attaches to and reduces a source of excess inflammation that can lead to skin and joint symptoms. With Sky Rizzy, 90% clearer skin and less joint pain are possible.
Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, had a vaccine, or plan to.
Thanks to Sky Rizzy, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement. And that means everything. Now's the time to ask your doctor about Sky Rizzy. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Okay, here's the thing. Your husband is overseeing a transfer from me.
Come on!
And now, sadly, that money's gone astray. So I was hoping that you would help me find it.
I wouldn't know where to do that.
You don't say no to me.
From pep in their step to shine in their coats, when people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's just smarter, healthier pet food. It's amazing what real food can do.
This is spring semester at Fairfield Sassoon Unified. They switched to Google Tools for education because there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook. Now they're focused on learning, knowing that their data is secure.
At the Salvation Army, a meal isn't just a meal. It's fuel for imagination, determination, and dreams. It's energy to be role models, change makers, and to just be kids. With your gift, a full meal means a full heart, a full night's sleep, and a future full of possibilities.
Mornings. Cough? Congestion?
I'm feeling better. All in one and done with new Mucinex Kickstart.
Better now. New Mucinex Kickstart gives all-in-one and done relief with a morning jolt of instant cooling sensation. It's comeback season.
Cracked windshield on your new car? Bring it to SafeLight. My customer was enjoying her new car when her windshield cracked.
My car.
She didn't take it to the dealer. She scheduled with SafeLight. We have the latest technology for the newest vehicles. And we do more replacements and recalibrations than anyone else. Don't wait. Schedule now.
SafeLight Repair, SafeLight Replace.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
There is more breaking news we need to share with you this morning. The Israeli Defense Forces say helicopters are currently striking in Lebanese territory. Also this morning, the military said that it had fired on what they're calling armed suspects that were coming out of Lebanon into Israel. Sirens are also ringing out again in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Those are rockets coming from Gaza, its southern border. Let's get back to Hadass Gold in Jerusalem for more on this. When you hear that there are helicopters that are striking parts of Lebanon after seeing militants coming over, according to the IDF, it makes one concerned that we may be headed into some sort of regional war here. What's the latest?
So what we're understanding from the Israeli military is that earlier today, those sirens that we've been hearing for rockets coming from Gaza were also heard in the north, meaning that there was incoming from southern Lebanon, and the Israeli military confirming that 2 mortars were launched towards Israel from southern Lebanon. They also reported that there were a number of armed suspects who had infiltrated Israeli territory from Lebanese territory, and that Israeli soldiers engaged with them, and that they are now also saying that a helicopter is striking in the area. We don't know whether it is still striking. This was a message sent from the Israeli military a bit ago, so it's possible they've stopped striking the area. So far, what we understand is this area is very much concentrated right on the blue line, right on the border between Israel and southern Lebanon. But there is a major concern about the involvement of the Hezbollah militant group. Now, there have been skirmishes along the border in the past few months, very small things, usually about tents and the like, with Hezbollah. But if Hezbollah gets fully involved in this war, not only does it open up another front, it opens up another front with what's essentially the varsity team compared to Hamas in Gaza when it comes to the types of arms and missiles and rockets that Hezbollah has in its possession. They have a much more sophisticated arsenal than what Hamas has at the moment. So that would obviously complicate the situation quite a bit. And not only then also for the Israeli military having to handle 2 fronts. Now, there is the possibility that this will be attributed to Palestinian militant groups, to Hamas in southern Lebanon, which does have a presence there. And that can often give sort of the plausible deniability that it wasn't Hezbollah, we don't need to get them involved. But that just goes to show you how sensitive and how unpredictable and how potentially very volatile and explosive this situation is right now in the north.
Yeah, and we should mention both Hezbollah and Hamas are backed by Iran. And so in whatever way you may say, they are involved in this, even if it is tangentially. As we watch this go forward, Hadass Gold, thank you so much for that latest reporting. Again, there are a helicopter that has struck inside of Lebanon after Lebanon sent over missiles and, according to the IDF, sent over a few people that were armed that they took out. That's where we are right now on the northern border to Israel.
The United States State Department says at least 9 Americans are among those killed in the terrorist attacks by Hamas. The State Department also says an unknown number of Americans were taken hostage. I'm going to play for you the Israeli Minister for Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer.
We don't have the exact number because we don't know exactly how many dead people who we're not in touch with. I think that would take several more hours to figure out the exact numbers, but I think it's scores of hostages. I can tell you there's also American hostages as part of that number as well. I don't want to get into a specific number, but these are women, they're children, they're elderly, they're Holocaust survivors. This is sick.
Also this morning, Israel's defense minister ordered a complete siege of Gaza. This is unfolding as we speak. Joining us now, CNN military analyst Colonel Cedric Layton. Colonel, thank you so much for jumping on with us. I want to start off with what Hadass was talking about there. The IDF saying that helicopters currently striking in Lebanese territory, also after the IDF says they've killed armed suspects, is how they describe it, coming in from Lebanon. Why is this significant and important?
Well, what it could be, Kate, is the opening of a second front in the war. We don't know that yet, but clearly the indications are that at the very least this was a probing action, probably from Hezbollah, but we don't know that yet either. But regardless, what we're looking at normally from a military standpoint is that when people cross a border like that, they are checking out to see what can be done, how far they can get. It's in essence a reconnaissance mission. So those reconnaissance missions may presage something else that could be coming down the road, but we haven't seen any other movement from Hezbollah yet, but that could be something that could happen in the next few hours or so.
Yeah, this is which just also proves that this is a very delicate, very tenuous situation even after what we've already seen. We are seeing also big plumes of smoke in Gaza as the IDF is just bombarding Gaza right now in response to the Hamas terror attacks. What would a ground incursion though into Gaza look like?
Well, that would be a very complex operation, Kate, and what would happen would be they would have to go in at several points along the border between Gaza and Israel. They would also have to be very careful because Gaza is a place where you can really get lost very, very quickly. They would have to coordinate with their Air Force, with the Israeli Air Force, to, in essence, deconflict operations. Right now, it looks like what the Israelis are doing is they're softening up targets using air power and artillery. What the next step would probably be that incursion if they want to go that far, and it looks like they are probably going to do that based on the types of equipment that is pulling up onto the area around the border, and that's the kind of thing that I think we can expect within the next, I'd say, 24 to 48 hours.
Talk to me about how you effectively, the complexities here. We're talking about the attempt to try to cripple Hamas while you potentially have, 100 hostages in Gaza, an urban environment. This does not sound quick or easy in the slightest.
And that's really the problem. In order to extricate hostages and free them, you would really need to have a lightning quick operation. You had former Prime Minister Ehud Barak on. He was, of course, the guy behind the famous Entebbe raid from 1976. And it would be that kind of an operation. The Israelis had to plan that very carefully. They will have to do the same kind of thing multiplied by at least 10 times in order to find all of the hostages and get them out as safely as possible. So you have that going on the one hand. On the other hand, you also need to, in essence, pacify the population and eliminate the leadership. So you have really three different lines of attack that you have to undergo at this particular point in time. And the ability to do that would tax any kind of military force, and the Israeli force, of course, the IDF is under a great deal of pressure right now to not only perform well, but it also means that their intelligence elements are going to have to be really on top of their game to provide the tactical intelligence that is going to be necessary for every single aspect of such an operation.
Yeah, and what you're looking at, everyone, as you're speaking, Colonel, these are live pictures of what we're seeing happen in Gaza, just big plumes of smoke, as you can see the bombardment continuing from the IDF. Talk to me about, look, the question is what does this mean in this moment, and what could this be a precursor to, Colonel? What do you see here?
Yeah, so what I'm looking at is, it somewhat reminds me of the shock and awe phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom back in the 2003 for the second Gulf War, and what you see is all of these multiple attacks. They're hitting strategic targets. There are several things that are going on here. It looks as if they're trying to get into different nodes, perhaps cutting communications links, also perhaps going after leadership entities where they think they have Hamas people either working, living in those areas. Of course, it's really difficult because the Hamas forces intersperse themselves within the civilian population, and that very fact makes it really, really hard to find the people that you're looking for as opposed to innocent civilians. But what you're seeing is a softening up of the target. You are making it possible
just because
now.
The camera just moved here. I'm being told by the control room what we're looking at here after this camera moved, that we're looking at Ashkelon, Israel, that not into Gaza. I want to make sure that we have clarification from the control room if that's what we're looking at in this moment. But if that is what we're looking at, Colonel, continue.
Yeah, so if that's what we're looking at, if we're looking at an Israeli target, it looks like something was shot from Gaza, from Hamas, into Israel, and if this is in fact an Israeli target, then it looks as if the Iron Dome system was overtaxed again in terms of being able to respond to this. So what we're probably seeing is a force in the form of Hamas that is fighting back against the Israelis and trying to make it very difficult for them to advance. So this could be a very ugly situation that's developing right now, Kate. And what we're seeing is multiple efforts, multiple axes of attack coming from both sides. So it's going to be a very complicated picture as we move forward and try to figure out exactly which side is doing what and how.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right, Colonel. We're continuing to get some more word in. It's along the Israel-Gaza border. Unclear exactly where it's landing. However, before we report more on that, we're gonna make sure we can get some more reporting before we do. I'm also, though, seeing, Colonel, just coming in, the IDF saying that it has attacked 130 Hamas targets in Gaza with airstrikes in just the last 3 hours. That's according to a statement that has just come out, using dozens of planes, it says.
Yeah, that's a very heavy air campaign for this kind of a target. The kind of air campaign that we had in Iraqi Freedom had a larger number of aircraft compared to that, but we also dealt with a much larger surface area when we did that and conducted that operation. So what is happening right here is a very concentrated attack. The Israelis have basically picked a whole series of targets, apparently 130 of them, and those targets are ones that they think will, in essence, either decapitate Hamas or coerce Hamas to do something that will help the Israelis move forward in this. This is going to be, a bit of a slog here, and I think, Kate, what you're looking at is a situation where there's going to be a lot of unknowns when it comes to this. We're going to see some things happening that we don't expect. We're going to see some things happening that would be in line with a military operation of this type, but there'll also be a lot of collateral damage.
That's for sure. Let's stick with me, Colonel. I want to continue to look at these live pictures. We're back now looking live into Gaza. We talked about the 130 Hamas targets that Israel says that they've attacked in the last 3 hours. Also, just putting in perspective, also the 4,000 plus rockets that were fired by Hamas since Saturday. Give me some perspective on that.
Yeah, so 130 targets compared to 4,000 rockets, that seems like a large disparity in numbers. We have to keep in mind that the rockets that Hamas sent over into Israel, most of them are fairly primitive, built in garages type contraptions that have a very, very short range. But in some ways that's an advantage because it makes it a lot harder for the Israeli defense systems like the Iron Dome to detect what these rockets are actually going for, which targets they're trying to hit. That also impacts their ability to go after them. When it comes to the Israelis and what they're doing in Gaza, it's a far more precise effort against Hamas because they're using more modern weapon systems. The types of aircraft that they're using would include F-15s, F-16s, possibly F-35s as well, because the Israeli Defense Forces have all three types of aircraft, and they're modified specially for Israeli use. So they have different variants that they use compared to what we use in the U.S. Air Force. But what they're really opting for here is something that will allow them to coordinate with their forces, and this does look absolutely like a softening up of the target, to use that term. And what that means is it's supposed to make it easier for the ground forces to come in and do what they need to do. If they are successful or not, that will depend on many, many factors, and there's always a variance between what happens with air power and what you really see on the ground. So that becomes a difficult thing for the ground forces to do.
Add into this conversation now, as we continue to look at these live pictures over Gaza, that the United States has announced it's sending a carrier battle group to the Eastern Mediterranean. What's the point? What's the impact? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, Kate, so when you bring in a carrier battle group like the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the aircraft carrier that is moving into the Eastern Mediterranean at the President's direction, direction. The desire here is to show the flag. It's basically a force projection mechanism. It allows the United States to be present in areas of crisis, and the idea is to tamp down tensions, to prevent this from getting out of hand by instituting combat air patrols, by doing things like that. And what that means is our aircraft could very well be flying and could prevent other aircraft from getting into an area or expanding the combat zone. So when that happens, that's more effective when you're dealing with two state actors, but in this particular case we're dealing with a state actor in the form of Israel and a terrorist group in the form of Hamas, which in some ways is acting like a state because they control Gaza, but they don't have the military forces that a normal state like, let's say, Egypt or Jordan or even Lebanon would have, and that complicates things because Hamas is going to go low-tech, so the efficacy of deploying an aircraft carrier into this kind of environment is something that remains to be seen. It can be effective, but we also have to be very cognizant of possible unconventional threats against the carrier battle group as it moves into the eastern Mediterranean area off of Gaza and off of Israel.
Absolutely. Colonel Layton, thank you as always. Thanks for walking us through what we're watching play out live. Thank you.
We do have some breaking news here. Israel Defense Forces just posted on social media that they are instructing people near the Israel-Lebanon border to remain in their homes. That's the other end of the country than we're looking at right now. These continue to be live pictures inside Gaza. We just did hear from Israel Defense Forces. They have conducted what they call 130 strikes, 130 targets in the last 3 hours. Let's listen. Large plumes of smoke. Cannot stress enough, there is activity now at both ends of Israel. Inside Gaza now, these airstrikes from Israel Defense Forces, 130 at least in the last 3 hours, and just getting word from the IDF instructing Israeli civilians near the Israel-Lebanon border to remain in their homes. Obviously, a lot of developing breaking news. We're going to have much more. Stay with us.
Something unexpected has arrived from Experian, the new Experian Smart Money debit card and digital checking account. It finds payments that could erase your credit scores without the debt. Get your new Experian Smart Money account through the Experian app.
It's a good day to start something new. To brush away gray in 5 easy minutes. To put yourself out there and always put your best face forward. Just for men, mustache, and beard.
Did you know you could save with GoodRx, even if you have insurance?
I'm on Medicare. I check GoodRx because it can beat my copay. Who wouldn't like that?
Even if you have insurance, GoodRx cannot be saved. Another good reason to check GoodRx.
Sleep more deeply and wake up rejuvenated with Purple's new mattresses. Fall asleep 20% faster, have less aches and pains, and sleep uninterrupted. Visit purple.com or a store near you.
A lot of people need to replace their windows or patio doors, but they put it off because they think it'll be too expensive. Hi, I'm Ann Romer. I'm here with Michael Smith from Renewal by Anderson. You really work with the customers to find affordable solutions.
We do, Ann. We're the replacement window division of Anderson, one of the largest window manufacturers in North America. So we can usually offer our customers larger discounts and better financing than smaller companies or contractors.
Other window companies don't offer your same window and door installation method.
Our installers have installed thousands of windows. Our windows are manufactured to precisely fit your specific window openings. Being custom built also means if you have any beautiful trim that you'd like to keep, we can often install your windows without impacting that trim. You won't get this with most vinyl windows.
And you offer a free window and patio door diagnosis?
We do. We'll come to your home and assess your current windows, show you where you might be losing energy, and take measurements. Then we'll leave you with an exact price quote that's good for an entire year.
So you're not a high-pressure company.
My background is in home remodeling as a carpenter. I've seen every window problem out there. So now I just want to help homeowners make their homes more beautiful and comfortable with the right window.
And your patio doors are really gorgeous.
They are. And they're engineered to easily open and close for years. And with multiple locking points on our patio doors, they provide even greater security.
That is so great to hear, Michael. Thank you.
Before October 31st, buy one window, patio door, or entry door and get the next one 40% off. That's 40% off with a minimum purchase of 4. And our financing can help make this project more affordable with zero money down, 0 monthly payments, and 0 interest for 1 year. This offer ends October 31st. For a free appointment with Renewal by Anderson, call 1-800-501-1400. That's 1-800-501-1400.
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Ensure with 27 vitamins and minerals, nutrients for immune health, and Ensure Complete with 30 grams of protein.
Israel at war. CNN brings you unparalleled coverage.
Following major breaking news
on the ground. With the latest developments.
The sirens have gone off. People are taking cover.
For continuing coverage, stay with CNN.
On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, we encourage Canadians to pause and remember all that veterans have sacrificed for us. Lest we forget.
So stressed out. I am so stressed out. I just got this bonus and I got this influx of cash. I gotta get this 401k. Emily's going to college in 9 years. My neighbor Lisa said,
Bill, we got you. At Facet Wealth, we help with every financial decision, from investing that work bonus to saving for Emily's college fund. Our dedicated CFP professionals work with you one-on-one to provide personalized financial planning for your entire life.
To unlock insights about your financial health, check your financial wellness score at Facet.com.
I'm Zachary Cohen in Washington, and this is CNN.
All right, breaking news. These are live pictures out of Gaza. You can see the smoke there rising. Israel Defense Forces says it has hit 130 Hamas targets in the last 3 hours. Okay, that update was about 10 minutes ago. I think there are more targets even since then. You can see all that happening right before you.
We were watching them hit live on air just before we went to that commercial break. The Israeli Defense Ministry has ordered what they describe as a complete siege of Gaza. We see these plumes of smoke as the aerial bombardment continues from Israel into Gaza as retaliation for trying to go after the Hamas terrorists from what happened in Israel this weekend. We do have video, though, of the airstrike hitting a refugee camp in Gaza. It is graphic video. We want to warn you before we play it.
We should be clear, this is one of the most densely populated cities in the world, and so you are seeing the fallout there from an airstrike at a refugee camp, and you are also now seeing these live pictures, those plumes of smoke. We were watching as airstrikes were happening as a result of more airstrikes, and as you heard Kate say, about 130 of them have already been conducted. That was probably 15 minutes ago, so they are continuing to barrage. Now that's what's happening on the southern border with Israel. We have seen tanks rolling towards that area from Israel, but we have also now gotten reporting that the Israel Defense Forces are saying that they have used a helicopter to strike inside Lebanese territory to its north. Those pictures are those tanks I was mentioning that are coming to the border to Israel's south. But in Lebanon, there has been a strike by an Israeli helicopter, partly because the Israel Defense Forces say that they have found militants that have come over the border. They have engaged them. They say there were armed suspects that they have shot and killed. All of this happening all at the same time. There is a big fear of a potential regional conflagration, but right now there is still active war happening right now in Israel and in Gaza. And of course, we have team coverage of all of the conflicts. CNN's Nick Robertson is on the ground for us in Israel. You have been showing us all morning that area. We saw the tank go by you, heading towards closer to the border. What is the situation on the ground where you are now?
Yeah, if you look over my shoulder here, John, if you can kind of zoom in, we're looking there towards Gaza, and that's a plume of smoke that we've seen. That has been burning. Whatever's burning there has been burning for some time. That has been the impact site of one of those airstrikes that we've seen on Gaza. We've seen multiple times fighter jets fly by. We've heard multiple impacts. We've also heard detonations of what sound like heavy artillery occasionally firing, but that dense plume of black smoke really curls around in the sky here. And just to give you a little warning, if you hear a loud explosion here shortly, don't panic, because the EOD team here is on site. They found some grenades here. They're going to make those grenades safe. They'll detonate those grenades. But those grenades were found in and amongst the area where these vehicles are over here, where all those partygoers on early Saturday morning were chased down by Hamas, 260 of them brutally murdered by Hamas. The white vehicle, that's a Hamas vehicle. Israeli Defense Force came on scene eventually and took out the Hamas fighters. There are more Hamas vehicles and Hamas fighters killed just around the corner from here. But what we're witnessing here, you saw that tank drive through earlier on. We're seeing a lot of military patrols around here, hearing distant small arms fire coming from the direction of Gaza. So this area becomes a more and more active military zone as it has been secured through this day. The early hours of today, the Israeli Defense Force saying they had secured this whole area here from the possibility of any Hamas infiltration. They've got rid of any Hamas infiltration in the area. So at the moment, we're seeing the military build up, the continuing strikes, and the cleanup, if you will, after that Hamas attack. This vehicle's being turned around because the EOD team is going to be detonating those explosives they found just down there ever so shortly. Sarah?
All right, our thanks to Nick Robertson. Near the Israel-Gaza border there, obviously, Nick, stand your ground there. Keep us up to date as to what you're seeing. We have seen deployments of Israeli forces moving toward the Gaza border in the last several minutes. And again, these are live pictures from inside Gaza itself as Israel continues to hit Hamas targets inside that region.
All right, at least 700 people were killed in this weekend's terror attack, and thousands more were wounded, and people are still being wounded and killed at this hour. There were also kidnappings as Israelis were grabbed by Hamas fighters. You just heard Nick Robertson there. He is right near the area where some of those kidnappings happened. People had Hamas militants coming into their homes and taking children out. The group says it has more than 100 Israeli hostages. And earlier this morning, we spoke to a woman who was beside herself, whose family members had been taken hostage by Hamas. She ended up speaking with our Becky Anderson, but first we want to go to Sean Turner, who joins us now live. Can you give me some sense, Mr. Turner, about where we are right now, in the sense that we're watching this happen? Both Lebanon now is involved in some way. Israel says it had strafed Lebanon because they found militants coming over the border. You have Gaza sending more and more missiles over the border into Israel, and you have Israel responding with a lot a barrage, really, and saying they're going to take siege to all of Gaza to rid it of Hamas. What is the end game here? How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, Sarah, since the very start of this conflict, I've been talking to colleagues in the intelligence community and national security circles, and the most significant concern that everyone has had is this conflict becoming a larger regional conflict and what we could do to prevent that. It's looking increasingly likely, based on what we've seen over the last couple of hours, that preventing a larger regional conflict is going to be very difficult. But we know that there's absolutely no way that Hamas could have planned such a well-organized and multi-pronged attack without resourcing, financing, and other support from Iran, which suggests that there are others already involved. Now, what we've seen in the last half hour or so from the north, with Israel needing to strike forces into Lebanon, that suggests that the worst case scenario is beginning to play out here with regard to a larger regional conflict. When we think about what the end game might be here, I mean, look, it's very clear that the Israeli officials have said that they are going to bring everything they have to put down this conflict, to strike back at Hamas. But the challenge here is that there's this concept of proportionality. We're talking about a nation state going up against terrorist organizations in the form of Hamas and perhaps even Hezbollah and others. And so while we recognize that Israel is doing exactly what it needs to do in order to defend itself, we have to watch very carefully. And the United States has to play a key role in making sure that this larger regional conflict is something that we are trying to prevent from happening, because that is not going to be good for the United States, not going to be good for any of our partners and allies.
When you look at what's happening here right now, I mean, is Israel in a really difficult spot? There are more than 100 people that Hamas says that they have kidnapped, that they have been taken back to Gaza. Israel is trying to go in and saying that they're doing, strikes and trying to avoid civilians, but this is the most densely populated city on earth. How is that possible to happen, and how is it? How do you see it? The response from those who are in Gaza, will it create more, for example, militants?
Yeah, Sarah, this is such a difficult situation for Israel, because what you need in this case is you need the ability to be able to do extremely precise and surgical strikes on targets that give the highest likelihood that you're not going to put Israeli citizens in harm's way. But we have to remember that we're talking about a very small area. We're talking about an area that's about 25 miles wide, a very dense area, as you said, a lot of urban fighting. And we know that the Hamas fighters are going to strategically use these hostages in order to keep the Israeli Defense Forces at bay with regard to the nature of the strikes that they're going to launch. And so when I think about the situation that Israel is in right now, I think there are a couple of things that are going to be really key. Look, this carrier strike group that's moving into the region, that carrier strike group is going to be able to provide a lot of intelligence for the Israeli Defense Forces, and that intelligence is going to be key. We've got to get those assets in place. We've got to get that collection started so that they can make those strikes. The other thing, and this is what's going to be really difficult for the Israeli Defense Forces, is that there is going to need to be a level of restraint that would not need to be there if it were not for all of these hostages. Israel is focused on making sure that these people are not injured or harmed as they're being held by Hamas, and so that's going to make this very difficult for them going forward.
Yeah, and having been in Gaza myself, there are always civilians that get injured or killed because it is so densely populated. I do want to ask you about the U.S. and its potential involvement here. They have already said they are going to be sending more military aid that has already been earmarked, but it's going to be sent faster than it would normally be. But you also have a U.S. aircraft carrier who is on its way to the Mediterranean. Can you give us some sense of how that may play a role in all of this?
Sure, Sarah. This particular carrier strike group is a massive show of force for the area. You're talking about somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 U.S. military service members. This particular aircraft carrier is the Navy's latest and most advanced aircraft carrier, the Ford. You're talking about a destroyer squadron, All of that on top of efforts to beef up the Air Force squadrons that are already in the region. And so what I see this carrier strike group being able to do is, look, recognizing that Hamas is going to continue to need to be resupplied if they're going to continue this fight. This aircraft carrier, this carrier strike group is in a position to disrupt those supply lines. That's going to be extremely important to Israeli support. It's also the case that simultaneously, as you said, the carrier strike group will be able to provide additional equipment, munitions, intelligence, and other resources to the Israelis. But I think the most important thing that you get from this carrier strike group being in the region is you get deterrence. Look, as I said at the outset, the worst case scenario is that this becomes a larger regional conflict. And when you've got a carrier strike and you've got this kind of firepower in the area, our best chance of preventing that, our best chance of having calmer heads prevail is to have this massive U.S. presence there. So it's, as I said, it's unlikely, but it's good that it's there, and hopefully we'll be able to make some progress on the diplomatic side.
Sean, thank you so much for going through that with us. We are, again, listening to the sounds of the airstrikes going off there in Gaza. You are seeing the results of those. There's that sound again. It is a terrifying, terrifying sound. And as you see, the result of it is huge plumes of smoke, but also the destruction of buildings. These usually take down entire high-rises. There are hundreds of thousands of people who live there.